भुवनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणि निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणि जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। Let's share the book. Hare Krishna. Uh, anyone can read?
हरे कृष्ण माता जी।
Krishnamurti Prabhu, can you read?
हाँ माता जी। अत्याहारः प्रयासश्च प्रज्वल्पो नियमाग्रहः जनसङ्गश्च
Hare
लौल्यं।
Krishna.
माता जी, आई एम ऑडिबल?
Am I audible? Haribol.
Yes माता जी, you we can hear your voice. Shall I read माता जी? हरे कृष्णा।
I think Mataji is not able to hear.
हाँ। हरे कृष्ण माता जी, we can't hear.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu. You can hear me, right?
Now you can hear Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu. Okay. So I've logged in from my mobile. Mm. So you can read the verse purport, Prabhu. Anybody can share that? Mansi Mataji?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Mansi Mataji is not in the forum Mataji.
Yes, she is the host, Prabhu.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, where which shloka we are supposed to read, Mataji?
Hare Krishna, Chandrika Mataji.
Yes, Mataji, but
Mataji, will you be able to share the screen?
no,
Anapati Mataji is not joining from the mobile.
I do not know how to share.
Okay, who can share? Sudha Mataji, Radha Mataji, anyone?
I'm reading through iPad.
Mataji, I'm from our mobile.
Krishnamurti Prabhu, anyone can share? Then I can make you the
And
co-host.
Mataji, I will try Mataji.
Okay, Prabhu.
Mataji, how we have to go first?
Yeah, Prabhu, there
We
is an
have to click,
option.
share. Mataji, I have shared. And then what we have to do, Mataji?
Yeah, you select on share and then you go to that particular screen where the...
1 second, Mataji. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. You can read, Prabhu.
Mataji, will you share?
Yeah, Chandrika Mataji is sharing.
Okay.
I'm also trying, Mataji, how
Amalbakti Mataji, I think there is some problem in sharing. Mataji, maybe you can just read, or the devotees can just read. Sharing is
yes,
not happening.
that's better.
Yeah, Krishnamurti Prabhu, maybe you can just go to the Google and where you are reading now.
Mataji, I am reading in book, Mataji. I have got book.
Yes, Prabhu. You can read the first paragraph.
Okay, Mataji.
Which shloka we are supposed to read, Mataji?
Mataji, second sloka.
Okay.
अत्याहारः प्रयासश्च प्रजल्पो नियमाग्रहः जनसङ्गश्च लौल्यञ्च षड्विभक्ति विनश्यति. Shall I read translation, Mataji?
Okay, Prabhu.
Translation by A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Prabhupada ki jai. Once devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities: eating more than necessary, are collecting more funds than required, over endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain, talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters, practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness, and being greedy for mundane achievement, achievements. This is translation, Mataji.
Yeah, purport. Chandradeka Mataji, you can read the purport.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Human life is meant for plain living and high thinking. Since all conditioned living beings are under the control of the Lord's third eye, this material world is designed so that one is obliged to work. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has three primary energies or potencies. The first is called the Antaranga Shakti or the internal potency. The second is called the Tatastha Shakti or the marginal potency. The third is called Bahiranga Shakti or the eternal potency. The living entities constitute the marginal potency and they are situated between the internal and external potencies. Mataji, give me 1 second. I'll just close the doors and come. Sorry, Mataji, it was disturbing for all of us. So, the living entities constitute the marginal potency and they are situated between the internal and external potencies. Being subordinate as external servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Jivatmas or atomic living entities must remain under the control of either the internal or external potency. When they are under the control of the internal potency, they display their natural constitutional activity, namely constant engagement in the devotional service of the Lord. This is stated in Bhagavad Gita 9.13. Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritimashritaha bhajantyananya manaso gnatva bhutadim avyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. The word Mahatma refers to those who are broad minded, not cripple minded. Cripple minded persons always engaged in satisfying their senses, sometimes expand their activities in order to do good for the others through some ism like nationalism,
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
humanitarianism,
Share,
or
screen is sharing, Mataji.
or altruism. They may reject personal sense gratification for the sense gratification of others, like the members of their family, community, or society, either national or international. Actually, all these activities are extended sense gratification from personal to communal to social. These activities may all be very good from the material point of view, but they have no spiritual value. The basis of such activities is sense gratification, either personal or extended. Only when a person gratifies the senses of the Supreme Lord can he be called a Mahatma or a broad minded person. Shall I continue, Mataji? Hare Krishna.
Radha Mataji or Sudha Mataji can read the next verse.
Hare Krishna Mataji Pranams.
Hare Krishna.
In the above quoted verse from Bhagavad Gita, the words Daivim Prakritim refer to the control of the internal potency or pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This pleasure potency is manifested as Srimati Radharani or her expansion, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. When the individual Jiva souls are under the control of the internal energy, their only engagement is the satisfaction of Krishna or Vishnu. This is the position of a Mahatma. If one is not a Mahatma, he is a Duratma or a cripple-minded person. Such mentally crippled Duratmas are put under the control of the Lord's external potency, Mahamaya. Indeed, all living
Thank you,
entities
Mataji.
within this material world.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Yes, thank you, Mataji. So we just completed with the first verse, and this is the second verse. So here, Rupa Goswami is giving us the do's and don'ts for our spiritual practices. So these are the don'ts which we should be following in our devotional practices, right? Like we have already discussed about in the translation about the 6 don'ts we should not be performing. Like if you perform this, then it will going to spoil our spiritual activities. So we saw about the 6, which are they: atyahara, prayasa, prajalpo, niyama agraha, janasanga cha, laulyam cha, sadbhir. Yeah, those janasanga. Uh, so all those 6 which will cause for our spiritual, uh, it's been spoiled. Activities will be spoiled if we get involved in those. So we'll just go through what Prabhupada wants to tell us through purport before we try to understand what is Atyahara or what is uh, Niyama Agraha. Okay. So here Prabhupada is mentioning for us about the first line itself. He is telling about human life is meant for plain living and high thinking. So what is Prabhupada trying to tell us here? He is also giving us the different 3 potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what are they? The internal potency, or it is also called as Antaranga Shakti or Chitta Shakti, which is the energy of, it is also the internal potency of the Lord. What does that mean? It is the spiritual energy. So Antaranga Shakti is here, you can consider it as spiritual energy of the Lord. And the second one is called as Thata Shakti or the marginal potency, where all the living entities comes under this Shakti. And then the Bahiranga Shakti, the external potency, or you call it as Maya Shakti or Mahamaya, where the material world is being situated, where all the different universes are all been coming under this Bahiranga Shakti. In Antaranga Shakti, all spiritual uh, world, like all the Vaikunthas will be coming under all that Antaranga Shakti. Whereas in Thata Shakti, it is all living entities being over there. So, what is it been mentioned that the living entities will be considered in the Tata Shakti or the marginal potency. So, that comes between internal or the external potencies. So, here Prabhupada is trying to tell us human life is meant for plain living and high thinking. So, what is meant by plain living here or simple living is when you are in the material world, you get a tendency to do sinful activities, or you try to enjoy the matter in the material world without being God centered or without being Krishna conscious. So you are tend to fall in the Bahiranga Shakti. So Prabhupada is trying to tell us that we are easily getting entangled in the Bahiranga Shakti or the external energy. So it becomes very difficult for us to get get out from there. So when we are simple living and we are high thinking, so what does this high thinking helps us? High thinking will help us move towards the spirituality, spiritual thoughts, and spiritual thoughts will help us in knowing about the higher realities. That what is the higher reality? That there is no truth higher than Krishna. So by the cultivation of this higher thinking, moving towards spiritual energy, that will lead us to take part, perform devotional practices, and then get liberated, and then go to the spiritual world. So basically, Prabhupada is trying to tell us that we need to live a simple living and high thinking, because if we don't do a simple living, we are very sure to get entangled in this material world. So that is what has been mentioned in the uh, first part of this paragraph. And then uh, Prabhupada is mentioning about how uh, the living entities are the eternal servants of the Lord, the Jivatma. So they must either remain under the control of the internal or external potency. So when they are under the external potency, that is Mahamaya, they are not aware of they are not aware of themselves. First of all, they won't be aware that they are souls, and then the part also comes about super soul, then the relationship between them. So all this is not at all aware to the soul when they are in the material world, and they have that forgetfulness of the Lord and their existence previously in the supreme, in the spiritual world. So but when they come under the control of the internal potency, that is when they come under the antaranga shakti, then they will be in constantly engaged in the devotional service. So here Prabhupada is giving example from giving reference from Bhagavad Gita shloka, which is that Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Daivim Prakritim Ashritah Bhajante Ananyo Manaso Nyatva Bhutadma Avyayam. So in this, what is Prabhupada trying to tell here? Hare Krishna, you can hear me, right?
Yes, Majadevi, we can hearing.
Yes, yes, Mataji.
Yeah. So what is Prabhupada trying to tell here in this verse?
The
O son
three,
of person, those who are not deluded, the great souls are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible.
human
Yeah.
life is meant for plain living and high thinking. The three energies, Antaranga Shakti, Bahiranga Shakti, Tatastha Shakti, are situated between the external and internal potencies. As it is said in the shloka, Bhagavad Gita shloka, those who are not deluded, the great souls are under the protection of divine nature.
So what we understand here, the great souls, the Mahatmas. So they are taking the shelter of Daivi Prakriti. And what are they doing? Who is Daivi Prakriti here? Here it is being mentioned as Daivi Prakriti as the Antaranga Shakti. And what are they doing? Bhajante Mam. So they are worshipping the Lord and they are rendering service to the Lord. And how they worship? Ananya Manaso. What does it Ananya Manaso means? That their mind does not go to other things. Why? Nyatva Bhutadna Avyayam. So what does this mean? That Krishna is the Bhuta Adi. He is the beginning of all existence, Avyayam, and is imperishable. So they know very well that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they don't have to go and do any service to any other demigods or to anyone. They know only Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they are fully engaged in devotional service and render service to him. So here we understood about who is Mahatma being referred to is. So he is a pure devotee, we can consider, that who is always under the shelter of, who is always taking shelter under the Lord, and who is fully engaged in the service of the Lord. And he knows very well that the Supreme Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And here, one more thing is being also uh, taught to us is about like why is this factor being brought about, uh, Bahiranga Shakti, Antaranga Shakti, and Tatastha Shaktis. Now we know that in the material world we are suffering. So, and our suffering is caused because of our sin. And the cause of our sin is because of our ignorance or because of our conditioning. So, all those reasons. So, basically, for a devotee, here Rupa Goswami is giving us don'ts and do's. So, what we call that as do's, the vidhis, and nishedas. So, we have to understand here that the master of all vidhis is what? Vidhis means the do's. The master of all do's for the spiritual practice is one. What is that? It is to always remember Krishna. Smartasya Vishnu Satatam. So, and what is the master of all nishedas? It is master of all the don'ts, is to never forget Krishna's. So here we can understand one more thing, that this do's or don'ts, the vidhis or the nishedas, they are being mentioned separately in effect, so that even though they mean the same thing, right? What is the difference in always remembering Krishna or never forget Krishna? They are one and the same, right? But still they are being given in different way. As the vidhi, that is you should always remember Krishna, and the nisheda is never forget Krishna. Why is this been given? The reason is particularly this verses, this verse 2 and whatever Rupa Goswami's instruction, it is meant practically for us, the devotees who are performing devotional practices, where we are not still perfect in our devotional practices, and we need to understand that to be perfect in our devotional practices, we need to program our lifestyle in such a way that we always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So that is what is being mentioned here. So, like, there are chances where in the first verse we heard about how what do you mean by taking bath like an elephant? In the first verse we read, right? What do you mean by that?
So, like,
Hathi, Hatika Snan. What do you mean by Hatika Snan?
just like an
You-
elephant, it takes a bath and then it comes out and again it puts all the mud on its body and makes it dirty. Similarly, we also, like, we do devotional service, and then if we are engaging our senses in mental this thing, then I think that is we are.
If we are engaged in doing some sinful activities, right? There
Yeah,
are
yeah.
people who perform sinful activities and then go and take
Mhm.
bath in the Ganga river thinking that all my sins are gone. Now I can do, I am
Anything.
pure,
Yeah.
anything. Yeah. So that is the concept which occurs initially for who wants to do devotional practices, but the tendency or the conditioning is still there, that they go and do the sinful activity again. For instance, those who are very new to Krishna conscious, they may not be able to uh, control eating non-veg, right? So the tendency is still there to eat non-veg items. So they will go and eat it, even though when they are still performing devotional practices. So for that reason, to make us aware of how it affects the devotional practices, Rupa Goswami has provided us with this instructions. And here he mentions it with different ways, like what are there in the Vedic scriptures in that which is relevant and which is very efficient for devotional practices. In that he brings out all the vidhis and nishedas to us. So similarly, like when you go to a doctor and he gives you medicines, he will tell you to avoid few food items or any other things which you should not be doing and which you should be doing. So if we just take the medicines and whatever do's and don'ts, if we whatever the doctor has mentioned, if we don't do that, is there any chance of getting cured soon? No. It will affect us, right? If the medicine has to be taken with some precautions, we need to do caretake of that. Otherwise, there is no much effect of the medicines. So similarly here, this verse is being mentioned in that way, that how we should be following it with the proper, when we are taking the medicine, with proper do's and don'ts, following it. And also this is what happens. Also we need to understand one more thing here, where they are mentioning only about Mahatmas or the pure devotees, the pure souls, who are always been taking shelter under the Lord. So here Prabhupada is also mentioning about cripple-minded persons. So he is giving example of also people may not engage their senses, or do the sense gratification for themselves, but little extra behind by being. Uh, so here Prabhupada is actually rejecting even those what we call as humanitarian or nationalism or altruism, whatever, all those things. He is even rejecting that in a uh, in a material point of view. Being humanitarian or being altruism or nationalism are all good in one way, but Prabhupada is actually raising the bar over here and telling us that in terms of spiritual or devotional practices, this is even considered as sense gratification. So only when we use our senses for the pleasure of the Lord, then only it is considered as the best. Otherwise, uh, here Prabhupada is raising the bar and mentioning that even if it is for other humanity or whatever, it is considered as the sense gratification for personal or extended part. So only those person who is utilizing the senses for the pleasure of the Lord, he is called as Mahatma or a broad-minded person. Otherwise, he is called as cripple-minded person. And as I mentioned earlier, in Daivi Prakritim, here it is referred to the control of the internal potency. In each verse, it will be different. The Daivim, it can be sometimes whenever, like in seventh canto, yeah, in seventh chapter, when we mention Daiva Bhutatma, so then it is mentioned for the conditioned souls, or to the referring to the material world. But here it is Daivim Prakritim, it has been mentioned for the internal potency or the pleasure potency of the Lord. So who is the potency? Who is the one who gives more pleasure to Krishna? It is Srimati Radharani. So this pleasure potency is the manifestation or expansion of Srimati Radharani or Lakshmi Devi, So when we are under the control of internal urging, so what Prabhupada is mentioning, that when we are having simple living and high thinking, our thinking is higher, and we are thinking in terms of spiritual energy. So that time the living entities come under the control of the internal energy, and their only desire and their engagement is also only in the serving of the Lord. So that is where the position of a Mahatma is. And if he is not following that, then it's called as a cripple minded or a Duratma. And where do they are been put under? So here the living entity can be either under external energy or under internal energy. So only when we surrender and when we are practicing devotional practices, we are under the internal energy. And if we are not, then we are under the Maya's energy. So this is what is the concept here. And here one more thing is about in the Nyatva Bhuta Avyayam. So here we have to see that Anyana Manaso, Bhajante Ananya Manaso. So what is Ananya Manaso here? Means the Mahatmas are fixing themselves only on Krishna, not on any other demigods like Brahma or any other, or even the other forms of Krishna like the Vishnu. So here Krishna is using the word Mahatma uh, to here Prabhupada is mentioning that the word Mahatma is used to describe them, to describe those who have surrendered to him after uh, many lifetimes, like in the 7th chapter, right, where Bahunam Janmanam Ante, and here also to those who devote to Krishna and then go back to the spiritual world, right? So this is the understanding of this Mahatma, and and we have seen that here there is indirect reference to Srimati Radharani also. And as I mentioned, it can be used in different word context. And here also we can understand that one more thing is we are all part of Krishna. So Krishna has his pleasure giving potency, that is here pleasure potency is Srimati Radharani, which we can consider as also Haladini Shakti. Now here we can understand that we are part of Krishna. We also have our pleasure giving potencies. We are what? We are Anu, right? We are very tiny particles. We are like the souls, very, very tiny, right? So our pleasure giving potency is also will be very tiny. But what happens if we try to enjoy separate from Krishna? We can enjoy, but that enjoyment is very tiny. So since we know Krishna is Vibhu, he is Aladini Shakti, that is Radharani is also Vibhu. The happiness which comes to Krishna from Radharani will also be unlimited. So when a living entity, the soul or the jiva, it tries to enjoy separately from Krishna, it also gets time and enjoyment. There is no doubt in that. But it is also entangled in the bad karma and get karmic reactions. So what the jiva is meant here to do is to connect with Krishna. So the enjoyment comes by connecting to Krishna, will give infinite, right? Will give the infinite happiness to the Lord. And in this way, jiva also becomes, or the living entity also becomes elevated and purified, and then ultimately liberated. So he's here in this 9th verse, that is this Mahatmana Stuma 9.13. So in this way, Krishna is here talking about the characteristics of people who are called as Mahatmas, how they take shelter of him. So here it has been mentioned about the what the internal potency and the conception of how whoever takes shelter of the Lord, how they are fixed in worshipping Him and not getting the main part is here is they are not getting deviated in from that. So here it is we can understand that Prabhupada is trying to tell about devotional services, that is bhakti, and in that way he is mentioning about the devotional aspect. So that is all about these three paragraphs. We'll continue in the next class. Why Prabhupada is telling us this? To make us aware that we should be living a simple living and high thinking. And in this way, we can come out of this material world and turn towards the spiritual world. So for that, what we need to do, whatever is favorable for our Krishna conscious or whatever is favorable for our spiritual growth, we should be doing the uh, do's and don'ts. So that is what Prabhupada is trying to tell us through this purport. Okay. So how we can follow all those 6 nishedas or 6 vidhis in the next sessions, we'll learn about it more. Hope this is clear. There's no doubt in this. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
Mataji. No
Thank
Mataji.
you.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. So we'll end here. If any questions or anything you want to share, let us know. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Any questions or anything to share?
No, Mataji. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranamam.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Dandavati. Vancha
Hare Krishna.
kalpatrupisha kripa sindhubhyavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Ananta Koti Vaishnavam ki jai. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.